Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week on the Cyclekart I'm going to make a start on the nose cone. See you in a minute. Now, a bit like the other day when it was seemed premature to be building a steering wheel before we'd even started the chassis, this time I'm making a start on the nose cone for the car. A couple of reasons, again perfectly logical in my brain. Whether they're sensible or not is a different matter, but as I'm going to have to end up making a tail unit which will be glass fibre, I thought I'd have a little play while I was waiting again for parts to arrive and things to gel in your brain, and make a start on the nose for it. So let's have a look at how we're going to do it. Now, I want to make a nose cone for the Cyclekart that I'm building. It's rounded in 3 dimensions effectively. Now, I don't know, the perceived wisdom is that when you're making something out of glass fibre, you make an original shape that you want, you then put a glass fibre resin all round it to make a mould, and then you can cast off that effectively. And that is a bit of a palaver for a one-off. It's right if you're going into production. What I have seen done though is people making the shape, the buck, the original sort of shape that they want, and literally just coating it with a thin coat of glass fibre mesh cloth resin, putting a lot of resin on to cover up all the weave of the cloth, and effectively use that as the shell that you're going to end up with and work with, and then just pull the buck out the middle effectively. It's not ideal, it's not perfect, but it's a quicker and easier way of getting the shape you want for a one-off. So what I need to do is get that shape. To do that, I'm going to do a timber former of the 3 dimensions, if you like, in shape, and then fill it out with polystyrene or something, carve it to shape, smooth it to shape, cover it in, I don't know what, body filler, glass fibre, I don't know at the moment yet, but then smooth it to the exact shape you want, seal it, and then put the glass fibre and cloth on top. So to do that, I know what the shape is looking at it front on. It starts, the nose cone starts at that point, and it comes forward tapering down to the grill aperture at that point. I'm not going to cut the grill aperture out at the moment because the whole thing is a rounded shape, the grill is rounded as well. So if I can make that whole shape, I can worry about cutting it out and trimming it afterwards. I can look down on the chassis, and I've got a plan view of that where it tapers. And what I've done, I've gone back to my program that I've got, and I've taken the set of plans again and cut some to suit. That is half of the nose cone, looking down on it. So I've got that. So that's 2 dimensions, that's that part, if you like. And then I need something that's got the side elevation, which again I've taken a section of the drawing, which is the nose cone, and that is the shape that runs that way. So I'm going to just now mark those out onto some plywood, cut them out on the bandsaw, and then hopefully I can put together the start of the shape that I want, and then we can move on from there. Right, so this is the starting point. I've got the bulkhead, which we know the shape of. I have the nose cone side elevation that I know the shape of. And now I've cut the two pieces which will go either side of that, which give me the plan profile. And that should all go together now nicely. I'll do some more formers further up, and then we can start and fill these gaps in and round all the various shapes off, and that should give me basically a plug which is the right shape that I need. That's got the essential basic shape. What I'm going to do now is make two more for the intermediate positions, because I think it's pretty much that profile all the way up, but just stepping backwards, and I can just shape the profile maybe slightly. Marked out where the axle's going to go on the car, because the front part curves under, whereas this remains flat. Remains a straight side up to the axle, and then from there on it starts to take a fully rounded shape on it. So I might put in a couple of dividers there, I'm not sure yet. But again, I shall just use the same template for these pieces, but just cut them essentially shorter. Right, so that's the first part of the exercise done. That's the main body of the plug made. The base from above fits that profile pretty well. The side profile fits the same, with the cutout for the front axle running through there, and that would be something that the sheeting or the side goes down there. I think that actually becomes the chassis rail, I'm not sure, but that can be cut out later. That will obviously curve under as part of the rounded front, and that is the elevation of the front end, and you'll see that is the line where the scuttle, where the front part is. That is the scuttle where the steering wheel and that lives. So that's pretty much bang on for that. So we've got all the dimensions right in 3D. What I've got to do now is somehow fill these areas with something, albeit foam or I don't know what. I haven't got that far yet, thinking, and start to get it smoothed as a shape. As I say, I'm not going to cut out the grill at the moment because there's no point. That'll be done when the whole shell is finished. I've been playing with the little wooden coffee stirrers I bought some time ago, and I could, for a lot of the side, use those as a base, just purely and simply just gluing them on like a very thin layer. But I'm not quite certain yet. Certainly the top area is going to have to be curved quite a lot, as is the bottom front bowl area, but the rest of it I might well go with something like that can be just glued on and then trimmed off and covered with something to smooth it. But given that that is almost the finished level, I'm anxious not to put too much on that now. Really, these ribs need to be the level that we end up at, more or less. So anything I do probably could do with being just slightly inside that area, and then I could put a layer of foam over it and shape it from there. I'll have a think about it. As I say, that piece will be cut out because that part rounds under there, that part just goes straight down, and quite how all of this will come apart from a plug as well, that's another thing I've got to think about. But I'm quite pleased with that for a day's work, or half a day's work probably in total. This might seem extravagant that we've got all this like birch ply being used just for a mock-up like this. For those that don't know the YouTube channel I've got for the shed itself, that is wood that I get from a place up in Birmingham who are giving it away. It's box tops off crates. Used a lot of it in the shed, a lot of it elsewhere, and for what it is, which is rubbish plywood in theory, it is remarkably good and ideal for this sort of thing where you're effectively going to throw it away at the end of the day. But it's already had one use as a packing crate, and it gives quite a nice finish. It is almost akin to a birch face ply, but if you rub that for more than a couple of seconds with a sandpaper, you're actually through the outer veneer and into the stuff inside, which isn't quite so clever. It's all sorts of rubbish plywood in there. But for this purpose, yeah, it's done me well. Just going to tidy this up now a bit and get it ready for its filling. Now I was going to get some foam like Celotex and probably stick into there to shape, but I couldn't find any locally that wasn't quite expensive. So I think I'm going to have a go with the expanding foam that you can buy in cans. See how that goes. It expands to about 30 times its volume, so it should give us a reasonably good coverage. I'm just going to put a little bit in to start with and take it from there, because doubtless it will expand expand an awful lot more than I expect it to. I've put it on a mat of something that doesn't matter, and what I'm going to also do is just damp down the surfaces, because the polyurethane glues and foams tend to stick and cure better to a damper surface. I'll do the top 2 or 3 layers first, and then turn it upside down when I've found out how horrendously it grows, and do the underside afterwards. Read the instructions for a change. Ensure they're free from dust, grease and other loose materials. Done that. Important to moisten surfaces slightly before use, as this improves adhesion. Done that. Remove the cap. Shake vigorously prior to use at least 30 times. Apply foam. Turn the can upside down. Press the adapter. Half fill the cavity and lightly spray the foam with water. The foam will expand to fill the rest. Right, I'll start on the inside and do a blob, and then I can always come back and put a layer on the outside afterwards. And see how we go from there. Seen folks wrapping this in cling film in the past as a means to sort of keep it under control and get some sort of form in it, but don't think we'll bother with that at the moment. Just leave that now for a while and see how it goes. Probably use the best part of the can almost straight away on that, so it gives some indication of how much it uses. When I come to the tail, I'm probably going to be looking at either using half a dozen cans like this, or getting some Cyclekart, or putting a former in of card or something underneath it just to put a very thin layer on top. But that was pretty much the cheapest I could get. As I say, there's not a huge amount left in there. I'll use the can up, I think. So there we are, after a couple of hours that's starting to set. It's filled most of the voids now. Still a little bit that'll need filling in. What I'll do is cut some of this back now, and then we can, when I do the underneath part, I can just fill in any of the gaps. We can work on from there. Next thing to do is to find something to cut it with. Normally I use a bread knife, but we'll try the little saw, little Japanese pull saws. Yeah, it's still a bit spongy, so I'm still a bit inclined to be not set. So I'm going to leave that a little bit longer, and then we can trim it back. So there we are, without too much trouble. We're getting somewhere close. You can start to see that there's some merit in that we can getting the shape already. What it really needs now, apart from filling in some of the gaps, which I'll do when I do the bottom under parts, I'll turn it upside down and do like there and under there, back on the side there and there. But hopefully that will end me up with that sort of arrangement. And what I'm going to do then is flood it with something relatively easy to sand, and I'm thinking probably the gyprock drywall filler that I use both on plaster repairs and for a certain amount of model shaping. I've used it before. It's soft, easily sanded, and it dries relatively quickly. We'll give that a coat all over and then start and get our shape sanded to shape. But so far that's showing signs of promise. With a bit more work to get it equal either side, maybe some more profiles, but I think we're getting somewhere. Right, I've got my second can of foam. Just going to fill some of the gaps and this bottom area. We'll get that done as well, and then we can hopefully get it ready for putting the filler on top. Bit he's left open because it's where the axle goes through. That's it. I suspect we'll need a little bit more filling on some of those when they're expanded up, and maybe even on these front corners, we'll see. But another step forward. Well, I think we can report that the second batch is far better than the first. It's worth waiting 24 hours to get the no-nonsense expanding foam from Screwfix than the other stuff they have over the counter. I hadn't quite expected it to get that big, but hey ho, got something to work from. I've put a little bit of shuttering up just to try and contain it a bit, but looks like it escaped even from that. Right, that's got the buck foamed up. I've sanded it roughly to shape. It is slightly below the surface, which is what I want, because I'm going to apply a coat of filler on top. I've given it a rough sand, both mechanically and by hand, just to get it roughly to shape. There may be one or two spots if it's a bit high where I'll have to come back and take a bit out and fill it, but I'm hoping that the filler that I'm using, the gyprock joint stuff I'm using, will be sufficient to be able to sort that out. I'm just going to give it a quick coat of PVA let down with a spot of water. Two reasons for that. Firstly, it should control the amount of dust coming off it now. There's still a little bit of surface dust on it, and that will mean that it doesn't stick very well when you come to apply stuff on top. and secondly it gives it a little bit more structure, slightly more solid, and it gives it something that won't sort of push in and crack when you're trying to sand the filler on top. I'm going to do the whole thing with the PVA, but I'm only going to do the filler to start with on the top section, because as with most things on this cart, I don't know what I'm doing, and so I want to make sure it works. I don't want to find that I've got the whole thing covered in gyprock joint filler and it's not very happy with it, and I have to hack all this out and start again. Some of the folks are using car body filler as well, but that's going to be far more expensive to do, so that's why I want to use, and it's harder to sand, so that's really why I want to use the joint filler first. But this stuff, as I say, should be stabilised with a bit of PVA, and it helps the gyprock get a bite on it and stick to it as well. I'll just finish this off and then we'll go and get the filler in here. Right, that's got one layer on the top. We'll leave that to go hard. Doesn't usually take long, probably a couple of hours, and then I can start and give it a rough sand. There'll be no doubt a lot more filling needed. It'll be a case of fill, check, refill, sand down, refill, and so on all the way through. But I think we're on the way. Right, that's got the thing on the way. It's going to be something I can dip in and out of over the next few weeks with progress, and again, it's one of the useful things to have, something a bit like the steering wheel that you can just dip in and out of when you're waiting for something else to arrive on the main build itself. It's not really a distraction because it's going to have to be built at some stage anyway, and it just gives you a chance to get things straight in your mind. When I started this, my view was that I was going to just make a former and put glass fibre over it and smooth it over, and that would be it. As it's gone on, I've decided to make it a bit more complicated for myself, but to make this into a proper buck, and then I can cast a proper thin shell with a decent finish on it from it afterwards. So these things just evolve over time, and it's better to have that time rather than rush into things in a hurry. So that's that. Hopefully in a week or two we'll be getting on with another further work on that nose cone, and in the meantime there'll be other build bits, I'm sure. So hope to see you in the future. I hope to see you next week. See you then. No. So I hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be doing something different, I hope. I'll see you then. Bye.